I keep making this promise to myself that I'm going to commit suicide. As soon as I'm finished with this painting. And then, as I'm making that painting, I think of another painting that I want to do. And that process just keeps repeating itself over and over again. Until, well, I've gotten to a point where I'm starting to believe that I'm probably just going to die of old age. And that should be a good thing. But for me, it's not. It's almost like I have this anger toward my art. Like I want to shake my fist at it and say, you know, why don't you just let me fucking die, you know? But it won't. Like I'm walking around in this world and people are, it'd be like almost if you can imagine waking up and, you know, and discovering that one morning and discovering that you're dead. And the way that you find that out is that you go to work and you start to go do your everyday activities of daily living, and as you're doing that, people just seem to start walking around you like you're not even noticeable, like you're not even, and then you start to get concerned, and then you start to try to draw attention to yourself, and the more you do it, the more your attempts start to fail, the more panicky you start to get, and it just starts to snowball and snowball over again and everything. So it's not about narcissism. It's not like I literally need to feel like hello, do I really exist here? You know, it's a frightening, terrifying feeling. It's not just about wanting attention. Like I literally am scared, you know, that I might not exist, and it's a terrifying feeling. And so so it's like being a ghost walking around this world, and people are walking amongst you, and you're a ghost and everything. So this documentary to me is the way I poltergeist my way into the fucking world. You know, it's the way I push that freaking that book off the shelf, you know, and say, fuck you, I'm here. I didn't sleep very well last night. It's not a bad thing. It wasn't because I was like stressed out about anything. I just had this poem that I kept ruminating on over and over in my head. I know that when that happens, the best thing for me to do is just to get up and just write it down. And that way my brain knows that it's tucked away somewhere and it can just rest now. This is the other thing too that I will do when I wake up at like the ass crack of dawn is because I have to pass. This is why I used to have a studio inside of downtown that I was renting, but I didn't get much work done. But I get more work done this way because I have to pass by a painting to get to the kitchen, and then I go, oh man, that's right, I need to do that. And I will literally stop sometimes and I'll start to kind of, but I don't do as much now that I paint more than I draw because it's a little harder to drag paints out and start doing all that stuff.
Hey Chris, how you doing?
Hey, I'm doing okay.
Alright, good to see you. Last time, couldn't have said the same. I think you were in the hospital last time we spoke.
Yeah.
Recently.
Yeah, I had just gotten out. I had just gotten out, so yeah, it was a rough month last month for sure. Yeah. Today I was able to get in to work and it wasn't bad, but I don't know. I just don't know. I'm assuming that it's going to get better, but right now it's still. I just know for right now, I'm upside down. My brain is upside down. Feeling comfortable is uncomfortable, and vice versa. You know, it's like calm is anxious and anxious is calm. You know, it's crazy the way I am.
So you are Chris's cousin.
I am.
What was he like growing up?
He was either very quiet and very thoughtful, or he was an explosion of energy and humor and creativity.
Cheddar cheese, Pringles.
It was either or. He would be extremely quiet, something would spark him up, and he would launch into some of the funniest things you've ever heard, even as a very little kid. When you think of professional stand-up comics, and you know that they've taken years to hone their craft and write jokes and practice them, he could do that on the fly.
I'm the counter of zeros and the consumer of everything. I got a whole bunch of trophies that can't buy anything. I take 7 different medications just so I can feel some sanity. Want some therapy? It's on sale. My doctor diagnosed me as a beta male. He prescribed me one big ass pickup truck and a whole bunch of commercials. Too thin? Eat this, eat that. Too heavy? Buy this Peloton, it'll burn off your fat. Teeth not white enough? We got a toothpaste for that. Don't like your nose? We got plastic surgery for that. Muscles not big enough? We got gym memberships for that. Dick not hard enough? We got pills for that. Dick not big enough? We ain't got nothing for that shit. But corporate call, they said, for this job, you're not suitable. So pack up all your shit and go back to your cubicle. And if you work real hard in 20 years, you can pay off your credit card. Always be on time and never tardy, and we'll throw you a pizza party. Oh, doctor called again. He said, take 500 milligrams of toxic positivity and 300 milligrams of toxic masculinity. Oh, waitress, I ordered a glass half full and you brought me a glass half empty. So take this back to the bartender and I'll tip you with one of my trophies that can't buy anything. Oh, you must not know who I am. I'm the counter of zeros and the consumer of everything.
You know, not a lot of kids think to ask how their parents are doing, but he was like that. And I don't know if he told you this story either, but you know, as kind and gentle of a person he is, he's like pretty ferocious when it comes to protecting people who are the underdog, as he would describe it. But when he was in college, we were in college at the same time briefly together, and he was at a restaurant. It was kind of like, it was in Natchitoches, Louisiana, and they kind of had like their own version of a Dairy Queen, just like a burger shake kind of place. And they there was a young waitress that was working, an African-American girl, and this was, you know, early 90s, and there were some young men in there who decided to start up with some racist slurs and started making her feel really uncomfortable, and it just started to escalate, and he took it upon himself to take on these young men. And I can't remember how many of them there were, but there were only one of him, and he took a beating for that. And I remember seeing him after it had happened, and I mean, he could barely eat because his jaw was so locked up from the damage of the beating. So, and you know, but he would have done it over and over again, no problem at all.
Palestinians are like, they're forced to wrap their loved ones, their dead loved ones, in white sheets. And this woman in this photograph, she has come across a big pile of white sheets, bundles of white sheets that are filled with bodies. And in that bundle, in that pile, she's found her baby, and that's what she's holding in her hands right now. This is the photograph right here, the original one. I don't know if you can get that. But she's just in so much agony, grief. She's just screaming up to the sky, you know, just to the gods, you know, to her God, and just in complete terror and agony. It just grabbed me. I had to paint it. I guess I was about 5 years old, and I don't exactly remember exactly remember why my dad was doing this, but I saw my dad drawing a picture I saw him draw a picture of something, and my dad, I mean, he's got some artistic ability, not much, but it was accurate enough to where it was just really impressive to me. I was just so amazed by it. It was like watching a magic trick happen, you know, and essentially, I guess it is a magic trick. Drawing is a magic trick because it's an illusion, you know. I mean, I'm drawing that glass right there on the thing, you know, it's there, and now all of a sudden it appears on a piece of paper, but it's not really that glass. It's just a collection of lines that create the illusion of glass. So, yeah, I mean, I guess for a kid, that's the lens that I saw it through, as a magic trick, and I was totally fascinated with the whole process. So I would pull comic strips out of the Sunday paper, and I'd say, Dad, draw this, draw that. And I think he did that a few times, and then he got tired. He's like, I ain't doing this anymore. But I was so, I was so hungry to see that process happen. I was like, well, I have to do it myself then, obviously. My dad's not going to do it. I got to do it myself. So I just sat and I would just draw, and of course make a lot of bad drawings as a child, until I got something that was pretty accurate. As I got older and my parents started fighting a lot more and separations started happening, and I felt invisible. I felt like I wasn't seen by my father. But I noticed that when I would draw a really good picture, it would catch his attention, because it was just unusual to see a picture drawn that well by a 6-year-old. So then it became like sort of a way to be seen, you know, by somebody I didn't feel seen by. And I guess, I mean, I guess I'm still that person to this day. I mean, that's still the thing that drives me. I'm still that little boy that is trying to make the best picture. If I just make the best painting, my dad will see me, and he will want to stay. He will want to stick around. You know, he won't leave. You know, of course that never happened, as they never do. A child doesn't have that power to make their parents stay, but it certainly never stopped me from trying, for sure. And I guess I'm still trying. Now, maybe not for that, but I'm trying for something similar. I don't know what it is, but I want to be seen and feel invisible, and you know, it's just a way for me. Zebras must die for this woman to have some shoes. Why am I nervous? Well, that's a good question. You see, I have been known to sabotage dates in the past. And it's not because I obviously nobody wants to sabotage a date, but I guess to explain that, you kind of have to know a little bit about borderline personality disorder, or dating with borderline personality disorder. My God, man. Hot topic. I should probably start with explaining a little bit about what it is, and the quickest way I know how. It's basically, you get borderline personality disorder when you've had a lot of abandonment trauma growing up as a child. And so you're always hyper vigilant to that. You're always expecting that that's going to happen to you. You're going to get abandoned, or you're going to get rejected. And you make desperate attempts, I would say, to avoid getting rejected or abandoned, and that often comes off as being well, you know how that comes down.
Yeah.
You know how that works out. Anybody
Yeah.
who is desperately trying to, and needing reassurance, you know, in the beginning of a possible romantic relationship, anybody who's demanding a lot of reassurance that you're not going to leave them is a complete turnoff. And I am very aware that it is, and I try really hard not to do that. But that's the thing. That's why that's why it's called a disorder, because you don't always, you don't always have control over it. It's just like my brain says, don't do that, don't do that, don't do that, but then every part of my being wants to grab holder, harder and latch on, and it usually ends up, well, I mean, you can imagine, it's very problematic, and so I go into any date with that worry that this is going to be another time where I'm going to sabotage it again. I'm going to do something, come off as needy, or I'm going to ask for reassurance in some way, maybe not necessarily direct, maybe indirect, but it'll still be asking for it, and that will be, well, unattractive. Years ago, I took a drawing class at a small university in Louisiana that I would later drop. And I had this drawing instructor that told me this interesting story about Salvador Dali. He said that when Salvador Dali came to the United States for his first gallery showing, he walked up to a Bloomingdale's department store window in New York City, and he picked up a brick and he hurled it through the glass window, raising his fist in the air and declaring, "I am Salvador Dali. Come see my show." This documentary is my brick that I'm hurling through the art world's glass window, and I'm declaring, "I'm Chris Fallon. Come see my show." Painting, I'm not what you would consider a pure abstract painter, because oftentimes I want to be, but to be a pure abstract painter, some would say, you can't really have a narrative popping into your painting. And I always start off with the idea that I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that is what I tell myself over and over again. And then somehow it creeps in. So it's a constant fight that I have with myself. But one way to avoid that would be, you have to work really fast. If you work really fast, you don't have time to think. If you don't have time to think, then your narrative won't creep in. But I'm a very socially conscious person. I'm a very angry person, too, at the same time. I think anybody who's socially conscious nowadays and paying attention to current events, there's no way you can't be fucking angry. It's just, how can you not be? If you're not, what's the saying, if you're not angry, you're not paying attention. If you're not angry, you're not paying attention, I think it's
When I was in Kuwait, I was on a combat operational stress team, and my job was to debrief soldiers coming back from convoys from Iraq. wasn't exposed to any combat myself, but my job was to debrief soldiers that were coming back from Iraq. Who had been exposed to combat in form of IED blasts and mortar rounds and RPGs, VBIDs, things like that. And what I found it was interesting was that, of course, they wanted to talk about the trauma, but equally they wanted to talk about their anger at the profiting. But I found myself, as I was listening to the stories, getting angry with them as well. And I think the saddest part was seeing there was almost like a loss of innocence. You know, it's like they went over there and they were so sure about, you know, their mission, and then there's something about seeing profiting off of something like that makes you question, because how do you trust a war where there's a profit incentive in it? And when you have those doubts, morale starts to break down, and I took that home with me. I took those stories home with me, and I never stopped thinking about them. I still think about them today.
And so, anger has a way of taking a life and an energy. It has a life and an energy in itself, and you can't hold that back. You know, it's a force for sure. Look healthy. I don't know, he's kind of like on the bottom there.
Oh,
so
he looks
like,
kind of depressed, which I think is appropriate for
maybe,
you.
yeah, well, I'm going to put him in this bigger bowl. That might help, but he's going to have some structure in there,
Yeah.
so I don't know.
Give him some rocks.
Yeah. Well, you coming home with me? At 12 years old, like a lot of kids that age, who are prepubescent period there, I started gaining weight and showing more interest in girls. Specifically, a group of girls that was in my class. And I started taking the long way home from school every day so I could walk them to their house. And one day, one of them said to me, "We're gonna have a kissing contest, and we want you to be the judge." Now, I'm I'm sure you can imagine, as a 12-year-old child, my brain just lit up like fireworks. I was so excited. It was like a dream come true. It was unbelievable. And so, of course, I agreed. And the first girl proceeded to approach me, and just before she got close enough to give me a kiss, she grabbed my shirt. It was this Western shirt that I was wearing with those little snap buttons on it. And she just ripped it open. And just exposing, my baby fat. And probably forgot about it, But I guess I didn't forget about it. I guess I never really forgot about it. I pushed it down for a long time and didn't think about it, and tried really hard not to think about it. But I guess it was always there. When I was younger, I would avoid any invitation to a pool party or anything of that nature where it involved me shedding some clothing, I just couldn't bring myself to do it. Into my adult years, I don't even know if I ever really, I do know, I never really felt comfortable, I think, even being nude in front of, a partner. But that stayed with me. And I guess that's, I guess that's how trauma works. It never really leaves, it never really leaves you. But I don't know when I'll ever be comfortable in my own skin. I know it's still something I struggle with today.
So Chris, I really like this painting. It's really cool. Can you kind of expound on your process?
Yeah, actually, this is actually my favorite painting, and it's my first abstract that I ever did, and I had no idea of how to do abstract or approach it, but I had already been making music for a while, and I play mainly like blues, rock kind of stuff. And in blues, they have something called call and response. What that means is one musician will play a lick on an instrument, and it is seen as the other musician will see it as a call. Like, ding, ding, and then the person's like, oh, that's a call. Hey, what's up? And then I have to have a response now. So I respond with mine. It just made sense to approach painting that way. And in the process, the musical process of that, as he's calling out, and then I respond with a lick, my lick that I think is appropriate response for his, as that unfolds, then a song appears. And that's kind of the way I approach abstract painting. So, for example, I will go, okay, I'm going to put little circles right here. That's the call. And okay, if circles is the call, then what's the response? The response is, squares over here, or stripes over here. And then so that's a response. And so what's the response to that? Stripes over here, and then more, and a splash of paint over there is the response to that. And then the collage piece of paper's response to, and it's just over the process, it just starts to kind of build in on itself, and it starts to make a composition, like it forms a song, like, but in painting form. When I joined the Navy, it was mainly because my family, we were struggling really hard. I was a dad working 16 hours a day in a seed warehouse, lifting 50-pound bags of seed in a hot warehouse in Louisiana, and I was making like $8 an hour. And we weren't making it. We just simply were not. And it was we were still like one paycheck away from being homeless. And so I had to make a hard choice. I had to figure out a way to pull us out of that. And it just seemed like joining the Navy was the most obvious choice. But I had to do probably one of the most difficult things that I've ever had to do. And it was, I had to have a conversation with my daughter, who was at the time, she was about 4 years old. And I had to explain to her why I was going to be leaving her for months. And I didn't know how to make a 4-year-old understand that her dad was leaving her, in a way that would make sense to her, because children just don't, they don't process that kind of loss. They don't process that the same way adults do. I had a lot of abandonment when I was a child, and so, but I also at the same time knew that I was doing something right. I knew what I was doing was right, and I was going to be pulling our family out of poverty. And so I had this mixed feeling, this feeling of hope that I was giving my family a new life, but also this terrible feeling of guilt that I was leaving my daughter to do this. And that was just a really hard conversation. I remember she was riding her little bicycle, and that she had just gotten for Christmas, and she still had the training wheels on it, and I was pushing her down the street, and I'm trying to have this conversation about how I'm going to be going away, and I still remember her trying to understand, asking me questions. She just knew, she thought I was going on a boat, and so I mean, that to me, that was a moment in my life where I felt like I was losing something, but I was getting something. I was moving on to something better, and we all have moments like that in our life. We all have, you go off to college, you go off to, and so I don't know. That's just what comes to mind when I play that song, because it's pretty, but it's also sad, and I think that kind of music is really interesting to me. Sometimes, it's like, how do those two things go together? And if you'd asked me to play that song a year ago, I would have played something from the minor scale and, bluesy kind of thing or whatever, rock, something. But now, today, when somebody asks me to play something sad, strangely enough, I go for for the major scale, I go for something that's known as something pretty, you know, and it's strange that I find the sadness in the pretty. That's where I'm finding it a lot lately. I have this weird thing where it's like each field of art that I do, I have a different purpose for it. I'm almost like a golfer with golf clubs or some shit like that, you know. I don't play golf, but you know, I have one for each one. And for me, when I'm angry, I do stand-up comedy. Like, it just seems to work really well for that. Comedy seems to be a really good outlet for that. And when I'm sad, a lot of times that can be visual art, you know. When I am feeling, like happy or confident, I guess you say, I maybe do some music. And when I do poetry, I started doing it because my heart was broken. And so a lot of times, oftentimes when I feel rejected or feeling like I'm gonna be abandoned or whatever, it always comes out in poetry. So that is the muse, the poetry muse for me. Rejection, abandonment, breakups. Now, over the years, it has matured, and I do tackle other social issues, but that's where it all started for me. And that's a lot of times, that's where it goes if I'm experiencing one of those things, you know. So, I don't know, what about you? Why photography? I mean, you don't get off like, I don't have to, quid pro quo. I am not going to answer. You're going to have to answer.
This documentary is not about me.
Wait a minute. Give me the camera.
No,
give me the
I
camera.
don't
No,
do
give me
that.
the camera.
Okay.
No, you're not going to. I'm turning this shit on you. If I got to be uncomfortable and awkward, you do too.
All right.
So. Okay, I still have. I feel like this thing is confusing me because when I pull it. Okay, all right. All right, let me see if I can get your whole head in the shot.
You're able to see
Okay,
me.
all right, wait, all right. Okay, Miss Alyssa.
Okay.
Why photography? Or let me say film and
Film,
photography.
oh, okay,
Yeah,
yeah,
film
you're right,
and
okay.
photography. Because you're more of a. You see yourself more as a filmmaker,
I
don't
do.
you?
I see
Okay.
myself more as a filmmaker.
Okay.
It started with photography. It did. And it started partly because I was afraid. I was afraid of forgetting. I grew up, and I realize now what I was experiencing was just disassociation. But I would not be able to remember events in my life. And I also wasn't able to be present in the moments. And I would mourn that. And my solution was, if I can't be present in the moment, then I can be present later through my pictures. And so everywhere I went, from the ages of, I think my mom got me my first little point and shoot camera when I was like 10. From that point on, I always had a camera in my hand, no matter what. And it would evolve, you know. I studied animation. I love art. I love mixed media. I love your art, you know. I love abstract. But it's definitely evolved from shooting because I was afraid to shooting because I want to create something beautiful that changes. To say change the world sounds really cliche, but when I say change the world, I don't mean like to bring world peace, even though that would be nice. I guess what I mean is that I don't have that big of a head to think that I and one person can bring world peace. But what I think I can do is I can connect. I can connect to people through art, through showing people's stories and faces and amplifying their voices. And so instead of being afraid and running away from something, art has been a way to run to something that's worthwhile.
I feel like I was always a visual artist as long as I can remember, as early as like 6 years old. But the rest of the stuff didn't come until much later, until about 10 years ago. It was 10 years ago, right after Thanksgiving. My girlfriend at the time, she came home from visiting family in Ohio. Well, at least that's what I thought she was doing, but she was really going there to cheat on me with her ex-boyfriend. And she came in, and it was just like that. It was pretty immediate. She sat down and basically told me that it was over, that it wasn't working for her. And I was devastated, to say the least. I mean, I didn't want to live. And so I went and checked myself into a psychiatric hospital, and I was journaling a lot. One day we were in a group, and the theme of it was, what is your superpower? And I had been watching some poets, but I'm not exactly sure why I said this. I was a fan of poetry before, slam poetry, but when they got to me, for some reason I said I'm a poet. That was my superpower. And after the group was over with, a couple of girls approached me and said, "Hey, I heard you're a poet. We're having a slam thing." And so I got up and I did it, and it felt good. So afterwards, after I got out of the hospital, I found an open mic, and and I spit my first poem on stage. And I think for the first time, for that 4 minutes that I was on stage, I felt seen. And all of the pain just kind of went away. That didn't last, of course, afterwards, I rode that high for a few hours, but then the pain would come back. But I just remember that was the first time I had some relief from it, and I couldn't get enough. So I was going to every open mic I could, and performing as much as I could, and then I saw somebody play a guitar while they were spitting a poem once, and I thought it was so fascinating to me to watch, that I knew I wanted to incorporate some kind of instrument in that. But at the time I couldn't really afford a guitar, so I went and bought the cheapest instrument I could, which was a harmonica. And I would spit a poem and play a few licks in it, and that was great, but I wanted more of that. So I started watching old blues harp players, is what they call it, blues harmonica players, and I started just playing manically around the clock until I got proficient enough to be able to play with people. And then once I got enough money to play the guitar, I started playing that too. And to this day, I don't know if I really love all of those fields of art as much. I don't even know if it's that I love them that much. It's just, or if it's just, those are sort of a vehicle for me, if you will. I don't know if that's a good metaphor, to be seen.
On Thursday, you said you loved the glow of an East Coast sky on a Saturday morning.
So Friday, I stole your crayons. Then I drew a rocket ship and traveled to the sun. I grabbed chunks of its beautiful hot oranges and yellows so I could paint you the perfect sunrise. I hoped this would win your love, but all it got me was burned. When I think back on it, as much as I didn't really see it at the time, when I thought that my life was over after my ex broke up with me, when I look back on that, it was probably the best thing that actually ever happened to me. Because if it wouldn't have happened, I wouldn't have developed all of those skills without that happening. So in a way, it was my way of making lemonade out of some terrible lemons that were given to me, to borrow a very cliche metaphor, I guess.
So Chris, this is our final interview. This is the last one. I'm never gonna talk to you again.
Okay.
Just kidding.
Okay.
Unless you want it to be that way.
No.
But I had some questions for you. And I realized I'm usually behind the camera, kind of just yelling at you. But I wanted to be on camera this time, and I wanted to just have a dialogue, a conversation.
Okay.
When we first met, it was a complete coincidence. We ran into each other at a coffee shop. You saw that I had a camera, and tell me if I'm misremembering anything. And you're like, hey, I need photography work. Can you work on my portfolio? And as soon as I saw you, I saw somebody with a wealth of experience. Every kind of tremor in your hand, every kind of wrinkle in your brow, I saw a person with so much texture. And I found that ironic because when I later came over to your apartment, all your paintings were full of texture. It was just like you. You were almost kind of hanging yourself up every day on the wall, a little bit of you. And I saw that, and I wanted to capture that. So my question to you is, one of our first interviews, you opened up talking about how whenever you finish a painting, you don't really know what to do next. You're lost. The painting is the reason why you were alive, and you just lost that. But you always seem to find another reason to live. My question to you is, what is your next painting going to be? And will you ever run out?
I don't see myself running out of ideas when it comes to painting, because the world is what informs that, and the world is always giving me stuff. Sometimes that's positive. Lately it feels like a lot of it has been negative.
Yeah.
But that is an endless amount of, I don't understand artists who say, who say that they run out of ideas or they run out of inspiration, because the world is it may be a finite place, but it is infinite to the individual, because in our lifetime in an individual's lifetime, you can never really explore everything that is happening in the world. There's just not enough minutes in the day, not enough hours in a lifetime to capture that. So I don't really understand the idea of running out of inspiration.
I guess you're stuck here then. So you do die of natural causes.
Yeah, I would definitely be.
It's disappointing, but no.
Yeah, and yes, very much so. I think that's a good observation.
I think I see in you something I see in myself as a visual artist, even though our mediums are a bit different. I'm almost a slave to beauty. And I realized that I find so much meaning in beauty, inherently. Something being created is meaningful. It doesn't have to have a purpose given to it. It just is, and so it's lovely. And I've grown to, I think, as we've the whole year been filming this documentary, I've grown to challenge myself that if I really believe that everything is beautiful, has some beauty in it, and if beauty has meaning, that everything has to have some type of meaning to it. And it's a strange, very artistic syllogism that only a liberal arts major would come up with. But that's something that I think you've kind of taught me. Of no matter how many times life just pummels you in the face, you get back up and you show life who's boss. You make something beautiful out of it. You know, and so I guess I also wanted to thank you. I want to thank you for that, you know, because I know this year hasn't been the best for me. It's been, I think, probably my best year, my worst year, all at the same time. I don't know about you, but it's been a lot. And so having that art, having something to run to express yourself, but then also to share with other people, I think is so powerful.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. I like what you said about being a slave to beauty. I think we all are, aren't we?
Yeah.
You know, whether we're a slave to, to somebody who's attractive, that we just can't seem to shake that I don't know what the word I'm looking for, that desire for them.
Yeah.
Or we can't stop pursuing our own beauty in ourselves.
It's like we're all gonna be a slave to something.
You know,
we gotta pick our master wisely.
Yeah, like it could be, you know, being a slave to trying to be beautiful.
Yeah.
You know, and then there's a slave to trying to make something beautiful. And so, beauty does have a power in that.
It's undeniable.
And it's, I don't strive to make anything beautiful. I don't think that I do anyway. I guess I do, but it's not.
I can tell. Don't worry.
It's. I mean, the first thing I want it to provoke an emotion or a feeling first, and then if I can make that beautiful, that's the secondary benefit of it. Is I try to make something. I try to make a message. That is thoughtful, that contributes to the world in a meaningful way. Beauty is important in the aspect that it's sort of the Trojan horse.
Yeah.
You know, it's like if I can draw somebody to a painting and because of its beauty, and then I almost trick them into getting a message out of it. You know, that's the Trojan horse.
Yeah.
You know, so a lot of my paintings they trigger. They can. I like to think that they have some aesthetic sense. It's important that they do, but not. But that's secondary to the motion. So it very much is trying to make something that's very sour into something very sweet. so that the viewer, the person taking it in, is it's like the spoonful of sugar, as they say, helps the medicine go down.
Yeah.
You know, that's the aesthetic part of the painting. It's the sugar that it's the lemonade, you know, out of the from the lemons, you know.
And that makes me think now of we've also, I think you've helped me redefine what beautiful is, right? You know, you look at these huge, large-scale paintings you have, maybe in charcoal and all these mixed medias, and perhaps the first thing that someone may think when they see it is that's a lot. That's not beautiful. Right? When we think of beauty, we think of maybe a resplendent flower or a sunset. But I know when I think of beauty, I think of equally a sunset, but also a thunderstorm. I think of power. I think of, like you said, movement, emotion, the ability to emote, to feel. And I think that really does, I think, help us expand our idea of beauty. That beauty isn't just the nice things, it's the ugly too. It's the sour.
Yeah.
You know, there has to be at least some type of sweet in the sour to even be able to make it that way in the first place, you know? Yeah. And so there is kind of, I think you mentioned that too earlier, how, you know, this kind of strange overlap of, there's a whole lot of gray in this world. There's a whole lot of good, there's a whole lot of bad, there's a whole lot of in between. And it's kind of our job to root through all of that and to find the gems, you know, to find that beauty and to put it on, to showcase it, to show the world. And I think that's how you scream, is through art. That's how you scream, no, there is beauty, there is meaning, there is value, there's something, I don't know what it is, but there has to be.
It is our bullhorn.
Yeah,
you know,
it is. I have one final question for you. There's an artist right now, hypothetical, there's a young artist watching this. Struggles with depression, but they have a gift. They doubt themselves. What would you say to them?
I would say that that depression that you are feeling, or that neurosis, you're going to have periods, as anybody would, with those disorders or those symptoms, where you're gonna feel like, you know, why me, you know, and you're gonna hate that you live with those types of things. But what you don't realize is those are your superpowers. That is your superpower. And for me, it has always been a superpower. I struggled with a lot of abandonment issues when I was a kid, and the arts was something that I did to, as somebody, if you know anything about somebody who struggles with, who's had some abandonment trauma early in life or neglect, you know, you never can quite fill that void, that empty well of wanting to be seen. And that is a never-ending thirst that you have. But it is a superpower in the fact that it will produce you. When you feel invisible, as I said earlier, you know, you're going to grab, when you feel unseen or unheard, like people with abandonment trauma will often feel, you're going to keep grabbing for the bigger and the bigger bullhorn. And if you're an artist, damn, you know, and your art is your bullhorn, you're gonna make some really good fucking art. You're gonna make some. Yeah, that same trauma that causes you so much pain will produce some of the most amazing, and I think history has shown that over and over again. You know, it's the reason why we have the cliche of the tortured artist. There's some truth to that. You know, I think, you know, not that you have to be tortured to make good art, but it helps. You know, it really does. So it does, and that will take some of the pain away. The knowing that it's producing some fruit for you, it takes the anger and the resentment of why did this happen to you? Why, you know, and you can find some thankfulness for that. So, I don't know. I took a long time to say that, but I don't know how to say it.
When do you not take a long time to say something? Note to the viewers.
Yeah.
I'm editing right now, probably.
Yeah.
I'm going to be editing to the end of the heat death of the universe. This guy talks way too much.
Yeah.
Well, Chris, it's been an absolute pleasure.
Yeah, you
Thank
too.
you so much.
Yeah, I don't know what to do with myself now. I'm not behind the camera.
You're just going to have to make more art.
Take a nap, you know?
That's it.
I'm tired.
Take a nap. All right, and hold on, I'm
All right.
gonna shake your hand. I feel like I'm gonna give you a hug.
Yeah, okay.
I don't know if it's on camera, but
Okay.
all right, and take.